So Here's What Happened is a proud member of the But Why Though podcast community. Yes. Okay. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of So Here's What Happened. As always, I am your host, Neysha, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host,
Carolyn.
Yeah. We are back. I know it's been a while. Thank you everyone who tuned into our last episode where Kate was on and we discussed Black Panther. Actually, our two-parter episode. So if you have not watched it, and if you have not watched the movie yet, you might enjoy hearing our thoughts on it beforehand. We did give spoiler warnings, but yeah, if you haven't listened to that episode, please go give it a watch and give it a listen and let us know your thoughts on the movie after you see it too. But this week we're back to normal as usual. And we're just going to talk about the things that we have watched and read and that we think you guys would find interesting or maybe not interesting. Most of mine is pretty positive for the most part, but we can dive right on into, how do you want to do? Do you want to start back with reading, TV, or film?
Let's go with reading, since you're the only one with something to read. I don't have a book recommendation this time around. So let's go with you. Start with you. What did you?
No problem. In true Neysha fashion, I have been reading webtoons again. Well, I have never stopped reading webtoons, but I have a new webtoon for y'all to check out. It is called Maybe Meant to Be. It is a romance and it is a webtoon. So again, you guys, this is free. You can go read it on the webtoon app, download it if you haven't, or read it on the website. But Maybe Meant to Be it features Hi Yoko. It's fine. I feel like Yoko is the unofficial or honorary third guest, the third host of this podcast.
Okay, give me a minute. You talk and I'll just shush.
Okay, no worries. So yes, Maybe Meant to Be, it's about Jia Han, a 32-year-old freelancer with no work, is tired of her parents nagging her to get married and finally move out. When she runs into her childhood friend, Jin, who is also feeling the same pressure from his parents, she blurts out that they should just get married to solve both their problems. Little did she know he'd accept her suggestion and suddenly finds herself thrust into marriage, a story of an unexpected romance that'll have you scrolling for more. And yes, it does. This is definitely set up to be a K-drama.
This is one of my favorite tropes. In ever, like when people are like, okay, let a marriage a convenient / contract marriage.
Mm-hmm.
When it's done really well, they're one of my favorite tropes, and I'm so happy we're missing it. I'm gonna put this on my list. When you put it out, I'm gonna make this part of my Christmas reading break list, because I love that trope.
It's a great trope because it just works really well when it works well when it's done well and you have interesting characters. Oh, and sorry to mention this, the story is written by, and these are their handles on Webtoon. It's honeyskein. So it's like HONEYSKEIN that is the writer, and the art is done by Damcho. So check them out. They have some other works on there, but so far I've really been enjoying this. Like we already mentioned, like clearly this is set up like one of our favorite K-drama tropes. It does take place in Korea. So there's going to be that kind of feel. So if anyone who's ever watched or read a manhwa or a K-drama, you're going to see some similar tropes going on here. There's more than one romantic couple. So there's like a side story with another one there's always a second couple, but I will say it's not boring. Sometimes I feel like the side couple can sometimes either be more interesting than the main couple, or they can be not as entertaining. I will say there's a nice balance of it for all around. So it's like, it works because the title, Maybe Meant to Be, is kind of like you have Jia, who is just like, she's a 32-year-old freelancer without work, and she's tired. She just feels stuck. And when you meet her, you feel like that's it. There's not much to her, that she's just lazy and all this other stuff. But then there's more that gets revealed to you about her past. Like she actually used to be like a famous writer, and like she won awards, but then she just stopped. So there's the mysterious element of like, okay, well, why did she stop? Like what happened? And then you have Jin, and his full name is Minchiolin. Sorry, I cannot say it because it's Min Chiol. So Minchiol. Minchiol, yes. But in my mind, I keep wanting to say Mitchell. So I have to sound it.
If they were actually to do like a westernized version, Mitchell would probably be the Anglicanized version of it, but it would be Mincho. So it's CHYUL or CHEOL?
EOL.
Oh, it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, main show. Yeah.
And he comes off as like the otaku gamer, but he's like very into fitness and working out. But like when they were kids and like childhood friends, she stuck up for him and they would hang out together and they used to play at each other's houses. So it's obviously revealed that he was in love with her way back then. She had no idea. But when they got to junior high, that's when they kind of just split paths. She ignored him and didn't act like he existed anymore once they got to junior high and she started to talk to other boys. Because people start to look at him as being weird. So it's like, I'm really curious to see more of his backstory and his feelings, because it's clear that he has always loved this woman from when they were children to now, and he's still in love with her. But
this plot sounds kind of similar to Romance is a bonus book.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because the difference is Romance is a bonus book is considered a Nuna romance. So that's like where she's the female lead is older than the thing lead. But they kind of work this. It's kind of similar in that she and Romance is the bonus book. She was a writer, and she kind of like but then she got married. I kind of like lost herself through marriage, and then she had to like she got divorced, and then she had to like rebuild herself again. So it's kind of sounds similar-ish, and like he was always in love with her, and he never told her that he was in love with her, and so he kind of watched her with unrequited love from afar. Like, yeah,
there's a lot of that with other characters too, where it's like, okay, it seems like someone had feelings for this person, but they never confessed to them. Later on, at some happenstance, the feelings come out. But with like our main couple, it's like Gia is now starting to realize that she does have feelings for him. And like, but she's trying to explain away, like, how can I be attracted to him? How could I be interested? Like, this and what about that? But then it's like, she notices things about him, like how he's very caring and like he's observant and he's a good listener and he takes care of her. And it's like, she's very much the Sunder type character where it's like, she's not mean in the sense of like trying to be like hurtful to him. It's just like, I think it's her way of protecting herself. So I'm like, so far there's only 34 chapters. Y'all can read them on Webtoon, as I mentioned before. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really well-paced story, but things are starting to heat up. Because like the latest chapter is a kiss should be more of a ... And like this one, people actually kiss. I will say that you actually see kissing. There's not going to be this long drawn out season of nothing.
Me and K-dramas with these gotta wait till episode 10 for them to admit their feelings. Then you gotta wait till like episode 11 or 12 for some silly little kiss. And then it's like, but then they break up over some ridiculous misunderstanding. Then they have to come back together. And then there's only like resolution in like the last chapter, which is like
kills me. It always kills me. And I'm just like, Kate actually mentioned a recent K-drama on Netflix where they actually have sex. I'm just like, yo, I need more K-dramas and like just romances in general, romantic comedies, dramas, like rom-com dramedies, whatever you want to call them. I need them to do that more. And it's not for like wanting to see the sex. It's just like, can we be for real? Like, I like romantic comedies. I really do. But I enjoy watching terrible ones for Hallmark with my sister. But I'm like, can we really be for real? Like, y'all are 30 something.
These people don't have sex.
Right.
They kiss and then all of a sudden they get together and that's the end of the film. That's like I watch.
They kiss and say I love you. I'm like, hold on.
But the men don't even really say they love you. Like the women just like it's just assumed. Like the men say I have feelings for you. I've always had feelings. They never actually say I love you. Like, I was watching this Christmas Hallmark movie the other day by my friend, and like this whole thing is like it's the same thing where he had unrequited love for this girl for like his entire life. And like she always only saw him as a friend, and like then like he started doing like this secret admirer gift thing where he was giving her gifts, and all these gifts are extremely personal gifts where like only someone who really really knows her would give her a gift like this. And it's like 10 gifts, And she got for some, no, 7 because it was 7 gifts because it's 7 because it's like she's Jewish, so it's like the 7 candles for the menorah. But I'm like, how do you not guess that the person giving you these gifts is someone who is very close to you, like, and the only person that's very close to you that's a male is your best friend right there? How do you not guess it's him? Because and like she's dating, she's like going on these dates with these 3 other men, and she's like, could it be one of these? Like, how could it be one of these men? These men you just
they
met
don't know you
a few months ago. They don't know you, like, so like, and then they only get together right at the end in the last 5 minutes of the film. And what?
It's really, I like to just make it a drinking game at this point because, and we did this before when we made a bingo card. Like, I think 2 years back, we made our bingo card of like, romantic comedy holiday tropes because it's just so predictable. So I like the ones that can actually catch me off my guard, but I'm like, can we just be for real? And can we make sure the existence of people knowing that, like, yes, people have sex? And honestly, it's not normal to say I love you after 4 days of being in your hometown and you see your high school sweetheart and you just have all these feelings. I'm like, come on now, no.
You don't know this person.
This is love bombing.
Exactly. And that's something that I always think about. Okay, like we're supposed to assume it's happily ever after these people. I'm like, okay, you kiss and you like confess feeling, but I'm like, are these people even sexually compatible? Like I alwaally think about this.
Are you sexually compatible? Are these people
even sexually compatible? Because we don't see them have any kind of actually sexual or romantic interactions. And not just kissing, I mean like heavy making out or whatever. Like we're just supposed to assume these people.
Where is the sexual tension? Where is the energy?
Like none of them have sexual tension. None of these films. None
of them. And it's just like, I just question, because I'm like, wow, the girl, the busy businesswoman with a job, and she just got a great promotion, gives it all up to move back to her hometown during Christmas to be with the man that she says she loves. Do you love him? Was it worth giving up your career, sis?
And they fall, right? And they fall in love together over the Christmas holiday. Which is
I've never thought of Christmas being this. I've honestly never thought of Christmas being that romantic, honestly.
It's not.
I just feel like people have tried to shoehorn romance into Christmas for years. I'm just like, I think of Christmas as like a fun time together with friends and family. I don't think of Christmas as a time to get engaged or married. You are selfish if you get married on Christmas, because guess what? I'm not going to your wedding.
Exactly. I blame all the white people who make these Hallmark and Lifetime movies trying to romanticize Christmas. Christmas is stressful for the majority of people. And not only that, they're always like, how do you actually have time to build a relationship with someone and say, I love this person? You've never actually been in any real situations with them outside of this Christmas setting.
Right. I like the ones, I will say, and maybe like me and Carolyn were talking before we started recording that maybe we should just like come up with a list of our essential watch list. But I will say there have been some in the recent years, like The Happiest Season is one that I think is a great example of like a romantic comedy Christmas movie. But it's not about, the ones for me, it's like, it's not about two strangers coming together and falling in love. It's about like either already having an established relationship, or like, because in The Happiest Season, I can't remember the characters' names, but it's focused on these two women, like they've been in a relationship, and you see like you see their relationship through the years in a montage in the beginning, and like the plot, like the real thick plot of it all is that the one girlfriend did not come out to her parents ever. And they're like, they're like in their 30s. So it's like a story about, that's what the story's about.
Well, their parents thought that they were just best friends all of these years?
No, they've only been together for a year. So this is when she's introducing her to her family. So, and her girlfriend didn't know that until they were like on their way there. So she's like, so what are we supposed to do? Like, are you trying to make me go high? Like this. So like, and it's a really good conversation. Like, this is the complex story that we deserve when we talk about Christmas time and families and relationships. This is good. And it's very like, I don't know, that's refreshing. And even like, I'll talk about the one that I watched, but Spirited, I think, is also another good one. Like, I mean, yeah, we can get into it later.
Yeah, like let's transition into Spirited, and that way we can transition into the film chat.
Okay, cool. So going into the film chat, I watched Spirited. It is the new holiday movie that Apple TV came out with, or Apple TV Plus, my bad. But basically the synopsis is, imagine Charles Dickens' heartwarming tale of Scrooge visited by 4 ghosts on Christmas Eve, but funnier. and with Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds, and Octavia Spencer. Also, huge musical numbers. Okay, we're asking a lot. Maybe just watch the trailer. But no, for real, that's it. That how it is described. And as someone who's not, I won't say I'm not a musical fan because I do like some musicals. Typically, when I find out a movie is a musical, I'm usually like, okay, let's see what the first two.
Spirited is a musical?
Yes.
I did not know that. Did I know that? I don't think I did.
No, I didn't know that until I pressed play either. Like I saw that there was some singing and dancing, and I thought like, oh, it might just be one number. No, imagine like it's all a huge stage production, but it's not, but there's no stage. The entire set is the stage, because you're gonna see things and elements that like they really pulled stuff from like stage productions in Broadway that you would see happening in a musical, like people dressed in all black and moving things around and moving sets around. And like even setting it up like that, because the whole synopsis is like, or the plot is, Will Ferrell is a ghost. He's one of the Christmas ghosts that come to visit Ryan Reynolds' character to change him. And basically it's the story of Scrooge, but with a more modern and updated twist, and not like Bill Murray's Scrooged, which I just watched, and that one's funny but problematic, but I digress. I like what they did with this one, because the whole point that like the ghosts are trying to do is that they're like, we're trying to help change people and make them better and see the error in their ways. So basically the idea is like, you know how like with The Good Place, think of how the good Place and A Christmas Carol met. And it's like, you have the ghosts who are trying to show people the error of their ways so that they can be better people and live a better life and make a difference, because to them, when they do this, it causes a ripple effect. Because if one person can change what they do, then that can add on to the next and on to the next and on to the next. Similar to like the original A Christmas Carol. By doing a simple act of good and being good, you can help others, and that can in turn help someone else. So we have that going on. So it's like this big production literally happening behind the scenes with the ghost. And then you have Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, which like, I do not think they have been in a movie together in like years. I don't even know if I can't remember the movie they've been in together, like start headlining it together at the same level.
I can't think of one.
I can't think of it. They're perfect together. Like it's really like their energy is really funny together. This movie, I would say, is something that people will probably, if you're looking for something like more refreshing for the holiday season, it's not like the other ones are problematic ones that we mentioned already. It's not predictable. I'll just put it that way. It's not your predictable Christmas movie. And the songs are really good. There's my favorite one is Good Afternoon.
Said that.
Yes. Well, because like, my favorite,
I say it, but do I really believe it?
No, I mean it. The songs are good. I was just thinking of my favorite one, that is Good Afternoon, because I don't want to give a spoiler away. And it's like a pretty big spoiler, but like I feel like by watching the movie in the first 15 minutes, people will guess it. So I say watch it if you have Apple TV Plus. Even then, like Apple TV Plus, you can always get a trailer. You can get a trial for 1 week. So you can watch a lot of stuff in 1 week.
Yeah, you see, I'll be honest, like I am not the biggest fan of Ryan Reynolds, and Will Ferrell for me can be hit or miss. And the reason for I kind of like Will Ferrell in particular roles, like in films like was it the car racing one?
Ricky Bobby.
But he was Ricky Bobby, like those kind of, and like Dodgeball. I like those kind of films. And I could see why actually Will Farrell and Ryan Reynolds work, because as you said, they have similar energy and they have a similar acting style. But also, I'm here hacking up along because apparently I'm allergic to my dog. I mean, you got an inhaler. Yes, my doctor was like, I had to do a whole bunch of tests, and they were like, "Do you have a dog?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Does your dog live with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I've had dogs before, but your dogs weren't living inside with you." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're allergic to your dog."
Oh.
And she sheds like she owes someone some fur or something. But I digress. But my thing, the reason I don't really like Ryan Reynolds as a performer is, to me, he plays the same type of role and same type of character, which is basically himself. he plays himself in all his roles.
You're not wrong.
Since Deadpool, he has played every single role from like from the first Deadpool film, and even when he did the whole cameo in the Wolverine film, you know, where he had his face and everything stitched up.
Oh yeah.
He has been playing every single role since then exactly the same way. Like the other day, and it was like, I might be too judgmental, but no. The other day, my sister was watching Green Lantern, and she said the same thing. She's like, this guy is playing himself in all his roles. She's like, Green Lantern is no different to Deadpool. Yeah. The only difference is the costumes and the name of the film. I will
say this, like, Ryan Reynolds is one of the few actors that, for me, depending on what the story, it's first off, it's about like what the character and the story is about, but it's like, yeah, no, he's definitely just like playing Deadpool. But there's some moments in this where you'll see that like you'll see a different side to him, that like he can like he does have the ability to do more than just be the snarky asshole. Like, because I mean, but I think that's why people just hire him to keep, I think he's just gotten typecasted at this point, where it's like, we need a snarky asshole. It's not like when Chris Evans was in Knives Out, and when people saw Chris Evans be an asshole for the first time, and they're just like, whoa, I did not know he could do this.
Chris Evans can actually act. Like I've seen him in other roles. Like there's this film that he wrote and directed himself, and he was really good in that film. It's a little cliche, but he was really good in that one.
Oh yeah.
But Ryan Reynolds, to me, I'm just like, I can't get with him. Like
I can't see him outside of Deadpool.
I can't, because like he plays his roles. He's one of those actors that when you see them in a role, I can't not think of this as not Ryan Reynolds. Like I can't see the performance. I can't see the character.
I can't tell.
This is Ryan Reynolds playing a role.
And I honestly feel like there's some films that work for him in his favor for that, but then there's just some that are not. This is one of those films that work for him in his favor, because like I think that's kind of just the joke of it all. But I agree with you. It's kind of like how, have you seen Bob's Burgers?
The cartoon?
Yeah.
I've only seen like a few episodes of it.
Yeah, but you know the voice of Bob, I think it's John V. Benjamin or something. John H. Benjamin, the voice of Bob. He's literally the same voice for all of his characters. Yeah. But I feel like the difference is it's the way he afflects his voice, or like changes his tone, or like, no, that's Bob and that's Archer, or like, I know that character and it's like he's this character. So it's like,
it's the same person that does Archer?
Yeah, he's the same person. The same voice as Bob is the same voice for Archer. So it's like, but I think that's the perfect example of like, his voice is very recognizable and iconic, but it's about how you affect your tone and like, what is the character type, where it's like Archer is an asshole. Bob is a sweet man who is trying his best to keep his burger shop open, and they're very different characters. So it's like, for our audiences, for an example, compare that with Ryan Reynolds. It's like, yeah, he has moments where like he can show he has a more depth to his acting chops, but at the same time, like this is not a character that goes far beyond that realm. Yeah, it's not quite Deadpool, but he is still being that jerky, snarky asshole, because the character is a jerky, snarky asshole, but with a heart at the end. But I will say,
I might watch it. I might not. I'll just be honest, people. I probably won't, because like I haven't even watched the second Deadpool film. Partly because I have issues with the fact that a stunt woman was killed on set, and like it wasn't made an issue. I'm like, no. But that's a different story. But that's Nisha's recommendation, Spirited. And like there will be many people who will watch it, because like there are people who love Will Farrell and Ryan Reynolds. I listen, I don't really have a problem with Will Farrell. He's funny to me. Like I do enjoy his Yoko. She wants to play because she's here rolling over trying to get me to rub her belly. I'm not playing with you. It's not playtime.
Like this is like, you need to listen. But okay, so yes, so that is my recommendation for the, y'all holiday viewing pleasure, whatever, or watch it whenever. But away from my movie list, how about Carolyn? You had 2 films you want to talk about.
Yes, I have 2 films. I won't talk about them very long. So I have 2 films kind of broken down into like similar, like not necessarily holiday, but it works as a holiday film, and then one that's not holiday, but it kind of, since this episode that we're recording technically is also our October, November, September also episode. This one is kind of like would fit into October because it has like more of a Halloween thriller vibe. But I'll start with that one because then I'll transition into the happier film. So the one that I'll start with is, that's a thriller. It's called Project Wolf Hunting. It is a Korean film, and it screened, I saw it at TIFF while I was covering TIFF, and it was written and directed by Kim Hong-seon, and it stars So In-guk, who's like one of my favorite K-pop stars. He's also a great actor. And also Jang Dong-yoon, Chae Gun-hwa, Sung Dong-il, and this film is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Hey, when I tweeted about this film, the first word that I used to describe this film is unhinged and extra. Like, this film is so extra. So before I get into that, I'll just read you the synopsis of it. So it's bloody bedlam breaks out on the high seas in writer director Kim Hong-seon's gnarly action thriller that pits cops versus cons aboard a cargo ship with a sinister secret in its cargo hold. So this film, when you read the synopsis, it doesn't prepare you for what this film is at all. The trailer also does not prepare you for what this film is. And bloody action is like also the perfect description for this film, because the only other film that I've seen that has used this much fake blood is a Taiwanese film that showed in 2018, also at TIFF. No, it was at TIFF. No, that one was at Real Asian. And this film, Project Wolf Hunting, so I want to know what their budget was for fake blood, because the set was just covered in it. Like,
so this is like a hyper violent thriller.
Hyper violent, but it's gory, but not gratuitous. But
yeah, kind of like,
I would call it gratuitous gore, but the gore makes sense for the story.
Like Bullet Train, kind of.
I haven't seen Bullet Train, but probably.
I started watching it last night, and I was just like, okay, so it's not Kill Bill level, like not Uma Thurman
this is
in the middle of the dance floor, covered in blood.
Kill Bill to shame.
Oh, okay, never mind. Well, go ahead.
For fake blood, this puts Kill Bill to shame. Kill Bill
Dang.
wishes it could
Kill
be
Bill,
like
in the scene where she's literally breakdancing in the pool of blood.
Yes.
Oh, go on.
This film, so this film, you can find it on Viki, but it was released by the US distribution is by Wellgo USA, so you can go on their site and find this film. So basically, and this is me telling you, this is even going to spoil the film, because like this is really one of those films where you have to watch it to understand what the hell I'm talking about. So there's like the way I would describe this character is probably closer to the original Deadpool iteration that we saw in like the Wolverine film, where like he doesn't talk because his mouth has been screwed. So this is, I still don't even really understand, because there has to be a part 2 to this film, has to be. So it's like this prisoner who was experimented on. He's like a genetic mutation, so he's like super strong, fast, and like deadly, and it has this kind of like this mindset. It's like it's only a killer. Once it locks onto you, it will kill you any way that it can, and in the most violent and bloody way possible. So it's like this cargo ship of these ex-cons that were being deported from different Asian countries, and they're being sent back to South Korea. So like there is like the cons and the cops who are transporting them. And you think at first, it's going to be a kind of like a conflict between cop and cons. But then this person, this human, this being just like wakes up, and like it's like cops and cons, everybody gotta like fight this thing, because like who really is, you don't have time to be looking at a cop as your enemy when you got this thing about here ripping people's heads off its shoulders. Right. And like you cannot, like, there's no way to predict who's gonna die and who will be making it to the end of the film, because there are characters I thought that would make it to the end of the film, and it was like, nope, you're gonna get taken out just like that. And I was like, okay, I can respect this. I can respect when the director was like, don't get attached to anybody.
Oh,
Basically.
okay.
Don't get attached to anyone in this darn film. So like, and that's what I like about it. It's like super bloody and gore, but that's all it is. And like there's some films where it actually does have, like, if you look at it talks a bit about politics, and it's talking a bit, I think, about the relationship between Japan and South Korea, like, because like Japan they colonized Korea in like late 1800s, and they were imperialists in South Korea. Like it's like a whole history. So the film kind of goes into that, I think, in a very smart and very subtle way, because for a lot of people they'll think, oh, it's just blood, guts, and gore, and it's like mindless action, which it is. But if you look at the way how there's certain things that are mentioned, the film actually does have a message as well, but it's also just like ridiculous action. And I can appreciate that, because sometimes every film doesn't have to be a Marvel. Every film doesn't have to be a DC film. Every film doesn't have to be like super high budget or whatever. Sometimes some films are just like just good fun. And this film is that for me. I was like, this film is ridiculous, it's extra, it's bonkers, like what the hell is going on? That would be the first question I would ask the director if I ever got to interview him. What was happening? Sir, what was going on here? And so that's what I really liked about it. It's just ridiculous madness. It's extra for no reason.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm here for the extra. Like, it's a fine balance of like, something can, like you were saying earlier, something can be gory and gratuitous, but like if it can serve the purpose in the film, versus like, it's not like it's Hostel. Like, and like for people who know what Hostel is, I only made it through the first 15 minutes of that movie and then I had to peace out. So it's not like, you know, there's movies where it's just like gore is just gory for the sake of like the shock value.
Yeah.
And I feel like from what your description, it's not. It's just like this film is extra.
Yeah, think of it more like a Judge Dredd, RoboCop kind of thing. So that's the way I would look at it. I would kind of put it in almost like in that genre or a similar vein. You know, like how those 80s and early 90s action movies were kind of like that. So I would say it's kind of like that. So again, that is Project Wolf Hunting. You can find it on, I believe it's on Viki, but also on wellgousa.com. It's like just good for ridiculous action time. And then the second film that I talk about, this one is, this film is adorable. I think it's one of my favorite films for the year. It's called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
I have kept hearing about this. Please tell me about it.
It is so cute. So this is a film written, directed, and also starring by Dean Fleischer-Camp. And it's like this mockumentary style film. And I had no idea what, again, this is one of those films that when you read the synopsis, or even if you look at the poster, you see this poster of this cute shell with this big eye and like cute shoes. And you watch like, what the heck is this film gonna be about? You watching, you're just like, oh my God, this is the most endearing film ever. So it's basically about this man played by Dean Fleischer-Camp, who's also, as I said, also the writer and director. He breaks up with his girlfriend and he goes to stay in this Airbnb. And while he's there, he discovers this little shell and it talks and it moves and it has a whole life. And like this shell has built a life in this house. And he starts, and like this shell, like it has like a little bed, it has its own bedroom, it has this little tennis ball that it uses to get around. Like it hops in the tennis ball and rolls around the house. And like that's how it gets to different places in the house. And it has like a garden and like different ways to get around. And this cat and this shell, who's voiced by Jenny Slate, also lives there with his grandmother, played by Isabella Rossellini, and his grandmother is called Connie. And so like the character Dean gets to talk to Marcel. He's like, tell me about your life. And he starts to film Marcel. And like, as I said, it's like a mockumentary stuff. So he starts to film Marcel, asks Marcel questions about how do you do this? Tell me about your life. And then you discover that Marcel and his grandma Connie are the only people that are left in their community, in their family, because one day the couple that lived in the house had a huge fight, and somehow Marcel's family ends up being taken away by the husband who moved out. And so it's just like, and so this film is I think it's such an endearing and such a sweet film about grief and loss from the perspective of a child, and also how children, especially if you live with a grandparent, like how children have to adapt to looking after a person who's aging, a person who's getting older and who's getting sicker. And it talks a lot about the pressures of children and the resiliency of children. Like children are very resilient. People think that children are able to bounce back from a tragedy. Are they able to bounce back from losing family or losing a friend or moving to a new location? Or even like, you losing a pet.
Yeah.
Sorry, you have to go deal with Yoko. And so the film, like, this isn't a revelation that Dean comes to. This is what this is a revelation that the audience will come to as we listen to the things that Marcel tells Dean. And you realize that while Marcel seems like a very happy-go-lucky child, he's very lonely and he feels very isolated and he feels very confused because he doesn't know where his family went. He doesn't know where all his friends and all his community went. He's like, I don't know where they went. I don't know where they gone. So he's like feeling with this sense of loss. And then like Dean, he's like, okay, let me help you look for your family. So like they do this whole internet thing, and like Marcel becomes an internet sensation. And they're like, okay, let's ask people to help us find my family. And people, instead of helping Marcel find his family, they begin to like basically just look at him as this cute entity that they can like, become like famous on social media for interacting with
the sensationalize.
Exactly. So the film also talks about the sensationalization of tragedy and how people on social media like turns people's tragedy into something for their own personal thing, and how like when someone asks for help, people don't actually really help. They just like interact with people because they think it'll make them famous, or they'll be just like, this is just a cute story, whatever. So the film also very smartly tackles that. But then I just love that it does that. And this film, I really want to interview Dean because I can't figure out if this is all stop motion animation or if it's done through complete VFX for Marcel. Like a lot of it has to be VFX, of course, but I like the VFX for this film is like seamless. You can't tell really what's real and what's not real. So like as I said, like Marcel and his grandmother, they have a garden, right? So I'm like, is everything that we see in the garden real? Or is this all VFX? Or did they actually have like a little Marcel and film, like do stop motion animation, filming Marcel doing all these things, like rolling around in the tennis ball, using a thimble to get water, like he like all. And it also talks about the ingenuity of how like you have these things, like just random things hanging around your house, like a pencil or a paperclip or a piece of string. Like what could these pieces of random things be used to help someone? Like we could just see a piece of string hanging around, but for Marcel, he's like, I can use the string to help me get something done. So I think the film is also really ingenious, talking about the imagination of children. Like children are super inventive that way,
right?
So like it's just so sweet and it's perfect. And I don't think it's on Apple TV. It was released in the theaters. It was released by A24, so it's probably available for rental through their site, but I'm probably.
And I'm pretty sure like the Marcel the show used to be just like a YouTube channel at the beginning. Really? Yeah, I'm like, I was aware of like Marcel the Shell before, like about a movie. That's why I was like, oh, did they turn the YouTube thing? I'm trying to see like, or like it wasn't an original. I'm looking it up. Yeah, there's an original film in 2002. It was a short film. It was a short and comedy.
Yeah, short film, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I did not know that, but it's
and then like the people, I always remember people, because when I was in college, my roommate talked about Marcel. She would like quote the shell, and I was just like, I don't know what this thing is. But then like she showed it to me once. I'm like, oh, that's adorable.
No, but that's the thing. That's also the other thing. Like Marcel is very snarky. Like I love the dialogue for Marcel, even for Connie. Like they're very shady and very snarky. And they say things that like Marcel shades the hell out of Dean sometimes. Like Dean was talking about, he was like, Dean, if your life was all that great, you would not be staying in an Airbnb. You would not be here. That kind of thing. Like, okay. Right. And he was like, I'm like, he's like, do you have your life together, Dean? That kind of stuff. It's like a child, but this is how children speak. Children will read you for filth and don't feel two ways about it, right? They don't.
Literally, my sister is a PE teacher now at one of her schools, and she was out sick, and she came in with her glasses on, and the kids were like, guys, Miss Campbell got blinded. That's why she wasn't here today. And it's just like, And like all day, them kids just kept asking about the glasses. Like, you look so different. You look better without your glasses. And they're like, they're just so innocent, and they don't mean it as an insult.
They don't care.
They say what they just be saying. They're like, you look older. You look like an older woman. I'm like,
exactly. Children don't care about your feelings at all.
They do not.
I used to work with kids in kindergarten at a public school, and like they would tell me about my hair. They were like, look at that outfit. They were like, are you sure about that color of that shirt? I'm like, I think I am.
Right. I had a child tell me, like, are you sure that's a good color on your nails? I'm like, little girl, if you do not go find your mama,
right? Like,
shush, and don't have me second guessing my nails.
Right? Like, but like, no, but Marcel the Shell with shoes on, this I believe it is honestly one of my favorite films of the year. It's so funny, it's so endearing, and like the as I said, animation for it is like seamless, like really good. And the themes, like Alice said, it talks about loss, it talks about loneliness, the resiliency of children, also the trauma that children have that people don't think of as trauma. Like loneliness can be a sign of trauma as well, or feeling isolated. So and also talking about media sensationalization of children. Like the film, there's a lot of things. So I think Dean Fleischer-Camp did a fantastic job. And I think the voice acting by Isabella Rossellini as the grandma and Jenny Slate as Marcel was spot on. It's so good. So this is why the Academy really needs to add a category for voice acting, because the work they do in this film is a great example of what voice acting is.
Because I have said this. Yes, and I stand behind this, because for some voice, like I love, like when I did that panel like a year or two ago with the voice actors for that convention, and I'm like, I love that Phil LaMarr had said something like voice acting is acting, and people have to stop looking down on it as like not being at the same level. Because what I can say is like voice acting is acting is not voice acting. Because when y'all depend on people seeing your face or playing off of the other person in the room, and you don't have that, and you take that away from people, you will see how quickly people are not at the level that they think they are. Like they assume, like a lot of people think that voice acting is just using their voice. And like, for some people it is. For some people, like we said, the man who voices Bob's Burgers and Archer, he doesn't change his voice, but he changes his acting. Like that's like, honestly, there's a lot of different ways that voice acting should be like rewarded and awarded for the skills and stuff. Because like, even like, no offense, but Lakeith Stanfield is not a voice actor, in my opinion. When he did the voice of the, what is it, Yasuke, that Netflix miniseries, it was terrible. It hurt my soul when I heard him as the voice of Yasuke. People like, I didn't think he was that bad. I'm like, he just sounds like Lakeith.
Bored.
He sounds bored. He sounds emotionless. When they were torturing this man, he's like, oh. I'm like,
I didn't even get past episode 2. I just cannot, because first, I'm like, this is not a proper story or adaptation of the story of the real first Black Samurai. And then
it's that's the problem. And here's my problem with that, because I even like, when are we back? No, I'm not gonna put you through that, because I'm not gonna tell you have to watch it to say it. Because I said this, I'm like, it would have been fine if you left the giant robots out.
Right? Why are they giant mechs? Why are they?
And they explain it, but they never talk about it in the show. Like there's literally a title card at the beginning that explains how mechs and this magical system existed. And I can think about like, wasn't the whole point of this supposed to be the story about the first Black samurai in Japan in the feudal era? And y'all didn't do that. You didn't do that. You just I wish. No, and I think because how it was promoted, a lot of people just assumed, like I assumed when it was promoted, that it was going to be inspired by that story.
That's what I thought.
And like, that's what saying that this story was inspired by the first Black Samurai, I laugh at that, because y'all just, it feels like you just took the story of the Black Samurai and you plugged it into this bigger story of giant ancient mechs and a power system revolving around this little girl and all this other stuff. Like the Yasuke feels like doesn't even feel like the primary subject in his own show. And I'm going to stop now, because basically I did not like it. The animation is nice.
I don't know anyone who liked that anime.
I know some people that did. I know some people who did, but I just did not. And I'm just like, when people like, you're right, I'm like, yeah, I know I am. But some people like to see that kind of stuff. They like to see the juxtaposition of like historical things like samurai with giant robots, and there's no shade there. But I'm just like, if the point of this was to create a story inspired by Yasuke, I just feel like y'all failed at that. You failed at that because his story is great and impressive and eye-catching on its own, and there's glimpses of that, but then y'all just shit it all over the rest of it. Sorry. That is meant to be an example, not a review. But anyways, y'all go watch Marcel the Shell. I think I'm gonna watch it now, based off of your review. It sounds so adorable.
It's so cute. You're just like watching and you're like, oh, and then you watch it like, oh my god, oh, like, oh my god, oh. Marcel is adorable. Like, there's sometimes when you watch a film or something animated, and you're just like, I wish this character was real because you just want to. Yeah, I'm like, if Marcel and his grandma Connie and all of their friends and stuff were real, I'm like, I would have you live with me, Marcel. You're like the bestest and the sweetest and the cutest shell ever. And I'm just like, oh, it's adorable. I was like, I wish Marcel was real. Because I would hang out with Marcel.
I could just see you and Marcel, her like them on your shoulder, just hanging.
I have a little Marcel on my shoulder walking around. I wish I don't know if they will ever do a Funko, but I wish they would do a Funko of Marcel.
I feel like somebody on Etsy, you know what? I feel like somebody on Etsy has to be making little Marcels for people. Probably. Like it's a shell with a googly eye. And
it looks like a telescope. The eye looks like a telescope, and he has these little orange and white sneakers. Yeah. But that's it for my film. So then we'll talk about shows. So what show, we'll talk about your show first, and then we'll talk about my show first. So what show will you talk about today?
I have two that I'll be very brief because one is completed and I'm going to give some spoilers in it because I have many thoughts and the other one's still ongoing. But Reasonable Doubt, don't know. Have you heard of it?
I was actually going to talk about that, but I decided to talk about another show instead.
Well, you can join in this discussion unless you want me to save this one and we do that one towards the end.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so we'll come back to that one. Alaska Daily it's on ABC, but you can also watch it on Hulu because they're all owned by the same company anyways. But anyways, Alaska Daily is from the mind of Tom McCarthy. Spotlight. So if y'all are familiar with the Spotlight film, it's in the similar scope. Alaska Daily stars Hilary Swank as Eileen Fitzgerald, a fiercely talented and award-winning investigative journalist who leaves her high-profile New York life behind after a fall from grace to join a daily Metro newspaper in Anchorage, Alaska, on a journey to find both personal and professional redemption. So I will say, again, the story and the plot of Alaska Daily has kind of like surprised me of how deep they're going with this, because in the synopsis you don't hear any of this, but like she goes to Alaska and she's brought there and recruited basically because they're like indigenous women are like going missing at a high rate, which if you've read the newspaper, if you know these statistics, yes, indigenous women, like specifically indigenous Alaskan women, are at a much higher rate that go missing or kidnapped or found dead than white women. And it is appalling. And I'm sorry, I said Alaskan, I meant indigenous native women. So not just Alaska, but like across the United States. It is terrible. So the film is really highlighting that issue. And it's like, it's not, and I'm not gonna lie, there was this hesitation in me because I'm like, I was worried this is going to be for shock value or something, but I will say this show's been doing a really good job of handling it with a lot of professionalism. And the whole point that they're trying to make is like, this is a systematic problem. And they continue to show like the police failed these people, the justice system failed these people. Like it's highlighting all these other ways, which like basically, yeah, look in the mirror, like. If people like, and like people even say like, no, like this isn't like a high drama. I'm trying to think of a show like maybe Sons of Anarchy or stuff where like, oh yeah, it's this doesn't happen every day. I'm like, no. This happens. Like stuff like this happen. Women go missing and are found dead. And people are just like, the police are assumed like, well, it's an open case and we're investigating, but you're not doing anything about it because y'all aren't actually doing the work to find these people. And they even the most recent episode, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because the most recent episode impressed me because there was a young white girl who went missing. And then like one of the reporters talked about how 2 days ago, this Indigenous woman went missing and no one knew about it. And like the reporter bringing that up made everybody in the newsroom shift the scope. They're like, we're not saying that no one should go look for this girl who just went missing. We're saying that look at how you treat and respond to the news of a young white girl going missing versus the news of an Indigenous woman or woman of color in general going missing. And they're like, they basically said, like, because as we know, when we hear and see white women going missing more sensationalized on the news, then it being brought attention, like when Black women, brown women, women of any color go missing, we are made to sound like criminals unless we're exceptional. And like, that's kind of like their points. It's just like, they assume that like, they assume the girls, like they're investigating, like the long plot of the film the show, they're like, well, she had a drug charge and she had this, so it's most likely that she had an overdose and she just wandered out. And like, how would she wander out into the tundra? How would she go from 40 miles by herself? And she had to use crutches to walk. So it's like, they're highlighting all of these things. And it's just like, there's clearly holes in your case and the police are not doing anything. And they're just basically like, they're showing it in a way where I feel like, I would hope after watching it, other people can understand like this isn't a fictional problem. This is a real problem that we have in the United States and in other countries. But it's like, yeah. And like at the end of every episode, they call attention and they give like a call to action for people to learn more. So
no, it is, especially here in Canada. It's the same in the States and here in Canada, where like Indigenous First Nations women they're killed or they go missing, and like the police and the government doesn't really do anything to look for them. Like there's like anytime I see anything like that on my TL, I always try to promote it and like retweet like the women, like people from Indigenous communities talking about that, because like, even right now in Canada, there's a suspected serial killer going around killing Indigenous women, and right now there's three women killed, 2 were First Nations and 1 was white, but they're like, they have a suspect, but like the suspects, they don't know where the bodies of the 2 Indigenous women are, because he put their bodies in a landfill. So like, he won't say exactly where. And the government, the police, they're not even bothering to look for the bodies, because they're like, oh, it'd be too difficult. And people are protesting, say you have to look for them. You can't just leave them there. And you like, people are like, your job is to look for them. So like, there's right now a big call to action for better treatment of Indigenous women, for the police and the government to step in and look and to do this. And then there's also a lot of human trafficking. Like there's Indigenous women and young girls are trafficked. In sex trafficking and even drug trafficking throughout North America. And earlier this year for AFCA, we spoke to she's a Native American boxer. She was a lightweight welter. Because while you were talking, I was looking it up because it ties into that. And her name is Callie Reese, and she wrote a film. She co-wrote a film and starred in a film called Catch the Fear One, which is about that, which is about this fighter, because basically the fighter is based on her own, not her own experiences, but like her own history as a fighter and also an advocate. And so she's playing this boxer, just like herself, who goes looking for her little sister who's been kidnapped and trafficked. And like, the police aren't doing anything for her and aren't doing anything to look for the sister, because they're like, oh, she's been sex trafficked, so they're not going to bother to look. And she's like, you can't, of course you're not going to find her if you're not looking. But then unfortunately it's discovered that the sister has died. But then the film is again, like the show you're talking about, is a call to action, and it's saying like, even while we can't save them, the ones who've already been lost, we can work to help save the ones who are still alive, and even for the ones who have been died, like get justice for them. And I'll put this in the show notes at the end, but like, one of the websites that you can go on for that is mmIWG-FFADA.ca. So that's like one of the websites you can go to look and see the different advocate groups and people who are working with this and with the police and doing also searching on their own. And you that show you're talking about, there's another one, it's a Canadian production that my sister is watching, and it's basically about the same thing, but it's not from the perspective of a reporter like Hilary Swank's character, but this one is from the perspective, I think, of a private investigator.
Yeah.
Who police were ignoring these women going missing, and they only started to pay attention because a white girl went missing, right? So it's basically about, so it's Big Sky. Big Sky is the name. Yes.
I like Big Sky, but like to your point, like, yeah, there is like that whole thing too of like, you see how urgent people are to find this missing person. But I will say Big Sky does a good job of like, there's like, they've gotten even more diverse. Like that was like the main case because it led to like a bigger plot and everything. But it's like, I like that the shows are being intentional with the topics that they're doing. Because I feel like in the past, like shows like SVU, like they're like a one and done episode. Like if you're going to talk about these kind of issues, I feel like you can't just wrap it in a bow neatly in 2 episodes. Like I appreciate that, like, no, let's talk about the systematic issues and without it being a propaganda piece. Like, and I think that's what makes Alaska Daily really good, because it's being told from an investigative journalism side. And they're looking at the issue from all sides. And they even admit where they were at fault in the beginning, because they reported on the girl who they're investigating. And they said like, and they were like, yeah, we only did 2 articles on her. And like one of them mentioned how she had a drug charge. And like they mentioned like, oh, because that was done by somebody who formerly ran the paper or whatever. But like the point is like, they own that they messed that up. They own that they played a role and discrediting the victim and blaming her, versus like from the beginning. And again, I know like this show may not change everything overnight, but I do think this is a great step in the right direction when we talk about women going missing, especially women of color going missing, and how this is a larger issue than people think. Like it's not a fictional problem on TV. This is like sex trafficking, enslavement, murdering, like all this stuff happens, and people want to act like, oh, it just happens on SVU. I'm like, no, it doesn't. So anyways, yeah, I like it a lot. And I appreciate you sharing that link that if people want to learn more about it. So then moving on to wrap things up, your show.
So my show is a British drama that is showing on Amazon Prime or Prime TV. Is it Prime TV, Prime Video? I'm never sure really which one it is. Is Prime Video?
Prime Video.
Called Riches. So like people are comparing it to, it's like Succession, but with a different angle. Of course, it's about Black people, but this one, the industry that is being discussed is the Black beauty care industry. Oh. And I love that this show is about Black people. One, like people say it's like the Black Succession, but to me, it's not just the Black Succession.
Yeah, no, that seems like it doesn't have to be the Black something to be good.
It's his own thing, because it's not about the stock market. It's not about real estate. It's not about cars. It is something that Black people from all walks of life and almost from all economic communities from all across the diaspora can relate to. And this is Black hair and Black makeup. And like we all know the struggle of Black hair, but it's going in from the behind the scenes of what it takes to run a company that is dedicated for Black beauty and Black hair and Black makeup and like the politics behind that. And this show was created and it's written by and executive produced by Abby Ajai. And as I said, it's British. So everyone is British. Well, not everyone, because some of the characters are played by American actors with British and West Indian heritage and identity. So it stars Deborah Ayorinde. So she was in another Prime Video series called Them. And like
I know that name. Okay.
Like she is so stunningly beautiful. Like everybody in this show is like gorgeous and
can she not act and control the scene?
Act down. Oh
I'm not gonna lie. I had to stop watching them after after the burlap scene, but like it was hard because like she makes that series for me. But sorry, go on.
No, I agree with you. I could not complete them either because it's so much Black trauma. And
Yep.
even if you take the Black out, it's just so traumatic.
It's traumatic no matter what, but like adding on like this is something that actually happened in history. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah,
I can't do it. I'm not in the space.
No, and this show, like she acted her ass off in them. And like I love when we talk about the duality or the variety of roles that Black actresses can play. Like I would also compare her after watching her in them and then the transition over to Riches. She's to me very similar to Danielle Deadwyler, if we're going to use a more recent comparison, in that so now I'm going to give a comparison between her and Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, as I said, when I watch him in any role, I only see Ryan Reynolds. I forgot when I was watching Riches that the person I was watching was Deborah Irinde. I completely forgot. Like she is her character, Nina Richards. Like I don't see Deborah playing this role. I'm seeing Nina playing this role. And it's the same for all the actresses and actors playing this role.
Yeah.
So it also stars Sarah Niles as Claudia Richards and CJ Beckford as Andre Scott Clark and Adeyinka Akarinade. And and this is another thing. All of the names you're hearing are West African and South African names. And I love that too. So this is also this show is about Black representation, Black West Indian representation, Black diasporic representation, and Black African representation. Because I watched this show and I just kept hearing different West Indian accents, including Bajan accent. And like Sarah Niles, who plays Claudia, like she has Bajan ancestry. I think her family is Bajan. So like when sometimes she would slip from the British accent and like the Bajan dialect would slip in, and but I was so happy to hear that. But the whole thing with this show is it talks about, yes, they're here in beauty industry, but it talks about different challenges that different Black people have. Yes, they're wealthy. And yes, they see the world differently. And that's another thing the show does really well. It shows that, yes, Black people they still have to face racism and misogyny and anti-Blackness. But then there's also this whole discussion of class where even Black rich people still don't necessarily see the world from the same position that Black people who are not wealthy. You know, they still have that affluent and privilege of wealth.
It's like not that someone calls it affluenza.
Right? Yeah. But so the film tackles like, yes, we all face the same challenges as Black people, but when you're from different socioeconomic backgrounds, you don't face the same challenges that way. So the film does that, and the show, I keep saying film, but the show does that really, really well. And Nina and Claudia, they have this. They're like cats. Like anytime they get together, they're like two, and I love that because the scenes between them, like Deborah and Sarah, like they nail these scenes, and you just want to be like fight. And the reason you just like fight because they just go all out in these scenes. But another thing that I'll discuss, I'm gonna wrap up now. But one of the things that I really love about this show, like interviewed them during Africa, and I'll link that as well, was one of the characters, Alicia, as I said, played by Adeyinka. She's dyslexic. And so, like, as you know, I'm dyslexic and I have cognitive impairment. So this was the second time in my entire life that I've ever seen a dyslexic character characterized on a major TV production. The first character was Spock in Star Trek Discovery. So like in the second season, we discovered that Spock, that people have always considered Spock to be neurodivergent. But in the second season of Star Trek Discovery, it was discussed that he's actually dyslexic. And like that was the first time I saw an adult character with dyslexia portrayed on screen. And this time I'm seen as a Black woman and a dark-skinned Black woman. And it talks about the insecurities that people with dyslexia have, because sometimes we doubt ourselves, we doubt our capabilities. And like we feel something like our families don't necessarily trust us or trust our judgment, or believe that we have the intelligence and the know-how to get certain things done. So the character of Alicia, she goes through those same struggles. I'm watching her in these sub scenes and I'm like, this is me. I've had the same conversation in my head. I've had the same conversation with different people in my family. And another thing that it really touches on is when we're under stress, people with dyslexia or cognitive impairment, when we're under stress, it actually exacerbates our symptoms. And it can make it, and it actually makes it harder for us to read and process information that way. So the show also touches on that. And I am so happy to get to see this character, not only because she's dark skinned and black, but I'm also like, this is a neurodivergency. This is something that's not, like, dyslexia is a neurodivergent condition that is not covered in media at all. As I said, I'm 39 years old, and this is only the second time in my entire life I've seen it happen in TV show. And the first time I've seen it in a film was one of the Small Axe films by Steve McQueen. He did a film series last year, and one of the films we talked about a little boy who was dyslexic, and I understood from that perspective. So I'm like, this is what representation is, because sometimes when we talk about neurodivergency media, people always talk about autism or, or being on the spectrum. But I'm like, yeah, like people who are dyslexic are also on the spectrum, just like we're on a different end, but no one really talks about that in media, because, forgive me for saying this, but sometimes I feel like people discuss autism because for them it's like a trendy thing to talk about. And this is like coming from writers who may not necessarily be autistic, but this is if they want to talk about neurodivergency or representation, they're like, okay, if you want a character who's neurodivergent, what's the syndrome you're going to give them? Autism,
Yeah.
No one is going to think about dyslexia, or no one is going to add in someone who has cognitive impairment. No one's going to talk about someone who has MS or brain dysfunction, or like I was so happy to see that.
Yeah, because neurodivergence is like something it's not that it's new. I think the conversations people are having about it are newer. And there needs to be this nuance when we talk about it, and people need to understand, like, what is neurodivergent? Like, my sister, be like, having done special education teaching and like training with students, like I've learned a lot from her, where it's just like, you can have a student, like, and I'm not saying normal in any sense of degrading anyone, but it's just like, you quoting her, it's like, there have been teachers at schools she's taught at who feel like they think the child looks normal, and they just like are trying to do everything. And then like she has, as a teacher's aide, she's had to speak. I'm like, no, this is one of my students that I have to like work with and help them take the test. Cause it's like, yeah, they can be just as engaging and responsive. Like, neurodivergency is so broad, and it's not just one thing. And I feel like the conversations we need to have about it needs to be more broad, but not in this sense of like lumping them all together to like make it like, you can't just say like, oh, that character's neurodivergent, but like you don't go into like, okay, well, how? Like, right? How? What are the challenges that they face? Is it that they have this, like you said, is it dyslexia? Is it like a social setting thing? Is it like even sensory? Like, like loud sounds, or like sensory is one that people are talking about more now, where it's like, you can have a child who's, if you put them in a setting where like it's too loud for them, they just shut down. And like if people don't know how to interact with them or communicate with them or help them, I feel like we're doing them a disservice. So it's like, yeah, don't just say neurodivergence or just give them autism and then just be like, oh, but they're just quiet the entire time, and like that child doesn't do anything. And I hate when TV does the thing of like, oh, they're magically cured.
Right. It's just, or another thing that they do, and and I'm starting to see it more in and it bugs me. And because, like, they have this thing like, okay, if you're neurodivergent, you have to be exceptional. And another example of that is like, okay, like you have the show The Good Doctor, which is based on a Korean drama. And then most recently another Korean drama called Extraordinary Attorney Boo. And so both of these characters in both of these dramas are autistic. And this is, I find, not specifically very North American. I think they do is like, okay, we have these characters who are neurodivergent, or they are autistic. As I said, this is the most popular quote unquote form of neurodivergency we see in media. They have to be exceptional, as in they're savants at whatever they do. So in The Doctor, he's medical, so like he's like a savant of medicine. Like he's exceptionally intelligent, and like, which a lot of people on the spectrum are. But like, this is the only way for them to be portrayed in media, where you have, in order to accept them or to understand them, like they have to be above average or above everyone else, who's on the spectrum. So your Attorney Wu, she's an exceptional attorney. She's an exceptional legal mind. And that's not what neurodivergency is. I know people who are autistic who are not quote unquote savants.
Right. Because it shouldn't just be that like, oh, because then, like you said, with The Good Doctor, people underestimate him or they question his methods. Because I've seen a few episodes with my sister, and I'm just like, it's not, because I see what they're trying to say, but I do feel like there's this there's like this negative narrative that can come about from that. Like you were saying, like with the lawyer show, I've seen the trailers for that one too. Because you're right, like it shouldn't be that like people have to be exceptional, because I feel like that kind of feeds off of like, if you're a person of color, you need to be twice as good to be deemed acceptable in this field. It should just be, it should just be like, they are here in this field and they know what they're doing, and that's it.
Yeah. Why do they have to be, why do they have to have, like, for instance, the intelligence level of Albert Einstein to be accepted by everyone else? Why can't they just have, like, quote unquote average intelligence? They're autistic, but they also have average.
Why can't they just do their job well, and you don't have to explain it as they're a genius
at it?
Right. They're not a secret genius. Like they could just be good at their job, because that's why they're here. They're qualified for their job.
Right. That, like, for me, my own personal experience, like I was diagnosed with dyslexia at I think it was, my mom said it was, I was in primary school too, so I was around 7 or 8 years old. And like the reason I even got diagnosed with dyslexia, like people, they thought, and before it was diagnosed, they had put me into and even afterwards, they put me into the classrooms with the kids who were considered to have behavioral issues, and they put me into the classrooms with kids who were severely autistic, or kids who were nonverbal, or kids who were like who had like physical, or what we would call, now we say they're neurodivergent, but back then they called it intellectual disabilities. So like, you know, so I was like one of the only kids in the classroom who was verbal. So I was in a classroom with a lot of kids who were nonverbal, who could not talk, or who had physical disabilities, who were in wheelchairs, some kids who had cerebral palsy. And then afterward I was diagnosed, they put me into a class for the kids, quote unquote, dumpsy kids. That's what they used to call it too, the dumpsy kids. And the reason I was put into that class was because, not that I didn't know the word, because I would fail at doing tests. Like I suck at doing tests. And the reason I would suck at doing tests is because I didn't have accommodations. People that they didn't, now we understand what having accommodations to do tests was. But back then, even up until secondary school, I didn't have accommodations to do tests. So I wouldn't be able to complete a full test, or because I needed more time to complete a test. But back then they didn't offer accommodations, you know, and I would be expected to do the same level of work in the same space of time as other people. So because I had bad grades, they put me into the classroom with students who would and a lot of us we weren't stupid, but it's just like, again, the system didn't know how to work with kids who were neurodivergent, or who had like learning disabilities, like this. Some kids that were like me were like dyslexic, or some kids were autistic, but like it wasn't understood then. And so like for me, like you guys know, I've talked about this before. I stutter. When I'm stressed, I stutter, or I forget my words, I repeat myself a lot, or I lose my train of thought. And a lot of that is, part of it is the cognitive impairment from them as well. Some of that is from the dyslexia too. Like with the dyslexia, like sometimes if I'm reading something, you can't ask me to read something and then tell me to recite it at the same time. I need to read it first to get an idea of what I'm reading, and then I'll be able to read it out loud. Don't ask me to give me some piece of paper and tell me read this now. I'm like, I cannot, because I need to take time to process what I'm reading. So it's like the same thing is also discussed within the same show, Riches. Like there's a scene similar to that with Alicia where she has kind of the same situation. And then another thing that I really loved is, like, Alicia begins working with Nina, and she is hesitant to tell Nina that she's dyslexic. But when she does, she's like, I can't do all of this. And Nina just straight up says, well, then hire an executive assistant. She's like, I'm going to work with you on this. She's like, I'm not going to ask you to work with me. I'm going to work with you to make your job easier for you. She's like, if you need help, hire an executive assistant. If you need to, hire 2 executive assistants, you know, and that's what accommodation is. And that's just easy. That's what acceptance should look like. Acceptance wasn't like Nina saying she needed Alicia to prove that she was exceptional before she started to accommodate her. She straight up said, okay, I'll be accommodating for you. So we went on a little bit longer, but like that's like, for me, the show just like, that's such a important aspect of the show for me, and it was so unexpected. And I love that Abby did that for me, and for other people who are other Black women, of course, who are dyslexic, and we aren't and that's another thing. When we talk about neurodiversity media, very usually is often white people. You know, we don't see neurodivergency in media and on screen discussed from a Black perspective or a Black female perspective. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
also
rare. It's very
rare.
rare. Like, and when it's done, it's like, it's just appalling. Maybe what we can start doing, and like I'm having an idea for us to like maybe have bonus episodes of doing something like this, but like having specific topics like neurodivergency in film and television and like examples, because like we can definitely go in, especially when we talk about Black people examples. Like, do y'all remember Losing Isaiah?
Oh yes.
Oh, I was just like, looking back on it, it's just, ugh, it hurts. It hurts. And granted, but like I feel like it's written to show like that's how it was back then. Think about how many young Black children were misdiagnosed with behavioral problems, but they were neurodivergent and didn't get the help that they needed. So anyways, keep an eye out for bonus episodes, and we could just probably we can delve into more stuff like we were talking about before, with like how these shows use sex trafficking and like issues for women of color, and like the stark contrast and like how it's being done well and when it's not being done well. So I think that's something we can dive into more, because it's worth having the conversation.
Yes, for sure. Let's do that. That's something we'll look into for doing for the new year, because it is December. It's the end of 2022. Normally this year has felt like it lasted 2.5 years, but we've made it to the end of 22. So that's like another thing we can do for 2023's people. So as LaNeysha said,
look out for that.
Yes, for sure. But with that, this is the end of our October, November, December. Well, no, this isn't our December episodes. Our October, November.
Well, at this point, we kind of just accepted that, like, we don't necessarily have to call them episodes by months. It's just that, like, right? When we record, what did you watch in the last 30 days?
And that's it. Last 60 days, because like one of the films, as I said, in Project Wolf Hunting, I saw TIFF, which was in 2020, which was in September. So yeah,
it's all good. It all works. Y'all know we trying to do our part and do better. Exactly. But we appreciate y'all riding with us for 2022. We look forward to going into 2023 with more things and new ideas, and just, you know, watch something good. Enjoy it. Look, this is the time of the year where, like, y'all saw my post. You will find me in my onesies. I will be in my Pokemon onesies, playing my game, reading my books, or watching movies for the remainder of the year. And I hope that everybody else takes the time to rest too, because it's been a year.
Very much so. I'm so busy. Like, this year has felt like, I was talking to a friend today on Twitter, like I remember a lot of us were saying 2019 felt like it lasted 2-3 years.
Yes.
But from 2020 to now, it's been all just one big blur. So it's felt like the last few years has felt like almost like a decade. Like, it's like keeping track of we made it to the end of this year. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord.
Thank God. We did. And we made it.
We made it. Like, we've done so much. And I think I'm so proud of us, LaNeysha. We've done so much, and God has so much accomplished in this last year. We thank everyone, all of our listeners, veterans and new, who've been with us and who's been sticking by us and listening to us talk and sharing our thoughts and opinions. And it's just been great. And this is also another great episode. So we will wrap up here. And I kind of rambled the last time in the Wakanda Forever recap. So I will do a short one, and then we'll have LaNeysha end off. So for me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CariCNH12. That's CariCNH12. Visit my author page. That's AUTHORY.com/Carolyn Hines, my full name, and find links to my most recent reviews, videos, podcast episode. Author did this thing where you can kind of link all of your work from different platforms, and you can just go there and find the YouTube videos as well as to the podcast episodes. So here's what happened there. I recently did a review of Strange World, which is a Disney animation cartoon. I called it literally Disney's most racially, gender, and body diverse animated cartoon. There are people of all sizes, like the character of Meridian Kusama, played by Gabrielle Union, as a baby. And she's dark skinned and with natural hair. I don't come through.
I'm like, okay now.
Right? I was like, look at her. She's not a bomb. And so like, yeah, you can find those, and that review's on PROwait.com. You can go there, read that. And usually for my most recent interviews and reviews and whatever, you can find also on my pinned tweets and in Instagram. And I am done. Neysha, tell the people where they can find you and what you've done recently.
Yeah, so y'all can find me as usual on Neysha Plays. I mean, at Neysha Plays. That's at NEYSHAPLAYS. And that's typically on Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok. What I've done recently, honestly, survived. I'm doing fine. I survived my second to last semester of grad school. I'm very happy that I am one step closer to getting my MBA. I'm proud of that, but I am working on some new things in 2023, hoping to get more involved in panels for some anime cons coming up. I will be going to DreamCon in July, so y'all can look out for that. I'll have more stuff to talk about. And honestly, nothing else, but I'm working on some projects that I'm hoping to share with y'all one day while I have some downtime. And sorry, of course, y'all can definitely check out my reviews of Urusei Yatsura on butwhythough.net. It's the series that I'm currently following on High Dive. It's great and it's very refreshing from it's a reboot of an original series from back in the day. I'll go into it more once it completes, or maybe in our next episode I'll talk about it more, but I have been enjoying it so much. I might do a think piece on it, but yeah, that's where y'all can find me.
Yay. And let me see, for next year I'm hoping to go to Comic-Con. I don't know, finances. People pray for my finances, because this is wants us to go to Portugal for our birthday.
Pray, donate to the soul. So here's what happened: PayPal if y'all want to help.
Right. Wait, we got a PayPal account?
That's where the money goes. It's on our Twitter. The link is there and it still works. Yes.
Yes, people donate to our PayPal.
I mean, hey, somebody's
yes, we should start mentioning that more often.
Somebody's donations have helped paid for at least our audio, not audio, but our podcast maintenance fees for at least 2 months. Yeah, not consistently, but we appreciate it. Look,
we need to start promoting that more on our tweets and stuff. I'm gonna start doing it. I'll be like, when I post the episode links on my Twitter and Instagram, I'll also be saying, and donate to our PayPal.
Yes, we will. Look, you want a producer credit on the show? That is how you can get a producer credit on this show.
A co-producer credit.
A co-producer credit. Yes, everybody's gonna be a producer. No, but for real, we mean it. If y'all would like to get a co-producer credit and help support our show, every bit counts and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much. And until the next episode, everyone, stay safe. Bye.
Bye.